Okay, here we go. Section 2, we're going to look at verifying trigonometric identities. To verify means to prove the truth of something. So we're going to prove the truth of a trigonometric identity. We're going to have two things that are equal, and we're going to prove that. And from Acts 1:3, we have, to these he also presented himself alive after his suffering, by many convincing proofs, appearing to them over a period of 40 days and speaking of the things concerning the kingdom of God. So Jesus verified or showed the truth of the fact that he was the Son of God. Okay, some guidelines that we want to use as we look at that. First of all, when you are verifying a trigonometric identity, you want to work with just one side of the equation. It might be helpful for you to print these guidelines out off of RenWeb. It's often better to work with the more complicated side first. It doesn't guarantee that that's the truth. Look for opportunities to factor. Number 2, add fractions, square a binomial, or create a monomial denominator. 3, look for opportunities to use the fundamental identities. Note which functions are in the final expression you want. Sines and cosines often pair up well, as do secants and tangents, cosecants, and cotangents. Number 4, if the preceding guidelines do not help, try converting all the terms to sines and cosines and see where that goes. But number 5 is really important. Always try something. Even making an attempt that leads to a dead end is going to give you insight into the problem. So when you verify an identity, you cannot assume the two sides are equal because that's what you're trying to verify or prove. So make sure you don't do things like add the same quantity to both sides of the equation or cross multiply. Okay, for our first example, we're going to verify this identity, that tangent squared plus 1 over 1 minus sine squared is secant squared. So we're going to start off with the more complicated side, the left side of this expression. And we should see there a couple of our basic identities right to begin with. We see that tangent squared plus 1 really is just secant squared of x. And the 1 minus sine squared, well, that is cosine squared of x. So we have this secant squared over cosine squared, or maybe we want to think of that as secant squared of x times 1 over cosine squared x. Not that we have to do that, but it maybe helps us see that what we really have there is secant squared of x times secant squared of x, or secant to the 4th power of x. And when we get to the point that we have the same thing on both sides, we have verified the identity. Now, again, note that we only worked with one side of the equal sign. The right side never changed. And that's very important when you're working with verifying the identities, that you stick with working with just one side.